Speaker.
Stuart Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was a great pleasure to speak on this budget debate, and I think I'd like to characterise the budget as being a canny budget, and it's built on 7 previous budgets that have put us in a position where we can make some good choices about what we do. If you don't have a good income side of your budget, you've got a pretty poor chance of doing much on the expenditure side. So we've got 2.8% per annum of real GDP growth, and with net debt projected to fall to 19.3% by 2021. That underpins that income side of the budget and enables those good choices I alluded to just a little bit earlier. Mr. Speaker, it's quite interesting, the innovative package, the Innovative New Zealand package of $761 million. That isn't on the back of other investment in regional economic development around New Zealand, which we're really starting to see some real benefits come through right throughout the regions. And I want to talk a bit about what's happening in my own electorate, Mr. Speaker, because we have we are, okay, well, fantastic. In the Marlborough region, there's a population in the whole region of about 43,000 people. And in the next 4 years, by 2020, the wine industry alone is predicted to grow 2,000 more jobs, or around 5% of the entire population. That's a phenomenal amount of growth into an industry which is all about adding value. And when those bottles of wine go offshore and sit on a table in a restaurant, that has Marlborough on it and it has New Zealand on it, and it underpins New Zealand as a producer of high quality, high value goods. And all other industries are able to go on the back of that. For example, selling lamb or venison or seafood or even indeed fashion, Mr. Speaker. I have seen leveraging off one another in such a way around the world, and I think that adds tremendously to our economy. But we have other industries, of course, and I'd like to just touch on those briefly in relation to migration numbers. And I think it's a pity that this debate's been, was really a shroud-waving exercise by some across the House around migration, because the growth in the regions wouldn't be possible without high-quality migration. In particular, in the wine industry, young winemakers from overseas come in who either migrate here permanently, or we have people coming on holiday work schemes who are actually qualified people, come in, do a vintage, and in effect get 2 vintages in a year. You only have so many vintages in your entire life, Mr. Speaker, which I'm sure is no surprise to anyone. But if you can do 2, one in the Northern Hemisphere and one in the Southern, you can really supercharge your career, and that's what's happening. And it's building links between wine industries and countries in a very effective way. The aquaculture industry also is going very strongly in my region, and as a matter of interest, on the water jobs, average over $70,000 per annum. So we're not talking low-end wages. So the regions are really steaming along, and I think it's in no short measure due to the things put in place around regional economic development by this government. On to other parts of the budget, Mr. Speaker. I think the bowel screening, the money going towards the bowel screening is going to be really something that'll pay big dividends in the long run. I think, yes, I think if most families in New Zealand are unlike, they'll all have had somebody touched by bowel cancer. It is a terrible disease, and it is now time that something was done about that to at least mitigate that as much as possible. So I support that. So, Mr. Speaker, there are, of course, a lot of the investment approach going into education, as with health spending, focusing on what the results are rather than just throwing money at the problem will always be a far better approach. And it's unfortunate that the debate has swung around as to how much money is being spent on it and whether it's a kept pace. We know it has, but people trying to play silly games around that. It's about whether we're getting more operations than we are. Are people having to go to Australia for cancer treatment? No, they're not. They used to have to. So we're getting all of those things by a canny and measured approach from a very good Minister of Finance who's put together 8 fine budgets, and I know everyone in this House is looking forward to the 9th and the 10th to follow. So it's with great pleasure that I commend this to the House, Mr. Speaker.